Been more than 3,000 aftershocks since the first of the two big quakes struck on Thursday.
KCAL9's Greg Mills begins live in Ridgecrest for us. He is outside the Red Cross Center with the very latest on the recovery efforts for the people there. Greg.
Good morning, Crystal and Amy. Some of those aftershocks have been pretty sizable. Believe us, the crew that's up here right now. Some people just can't go home because their home is red tagged. Others simply don't want to go home. Folks that were sleeping there, you see tonight, and also over to your right, you'll see a tent that a family was in, and people they don't want to sleep with a roof over their head. Not yet, at least. Red Cross has been helping everybody. More than 100 stayed inside the building. Red Cross has turned into a home away from home for those in need. That number jumped from the previous night, and many don't want to sleep under a roof, not yet at least, so they're camping out. Red Cross says at least 22 camped out here last night in Freedom Park, including Angel Munoz and his family for the second night in a row. But they hope to head back home today.
Hey everyone, Tyler here with Secureteam, and well, if you haven't seen the news over the past couple of days, it would seem that something very unusual is happening deep under the crust of California recently. After many of you, I know many of our viewers from out there in California, were first hit by a 6.4 earthquake, which occurred on Thursday, right around between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. A pretty big earthquake in the schemes of things. I mean, California and the surrounding areas, they get earthquakes all day, every second. But normally, when you look at the data, they're much smaller. They're 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. But when you get up to the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, that makes you wonder. And so Thursday, they were hit with a 6.4 earthquake, rattling homes, sending people out into tents because they're afraid to go back. And then just the next day, on Friday, a second earthquake manifested, registering on the Richter scale at a 7.1. This followed by thousands upon thousands of tremors and afterquakes spreading throughout the areas of Ridgecrest, China Lake Acres, Pearsonville, Searles Valley, and more. And it's been some pretty scary stuff here. And you're seeing some images of the landscape because some of these earthquakes, specifically the 7.1 earthquake, seem to be much closer to the surface, which is always scary. I mean, especially with all of the fault lines we have running through California and Nevada. Most of you have heard of the San Andreas Fault, and if that goes, suffice it to say, California is going to be changed. It's going to totally reshape the west coast of the United States as we know it. And so, besides these two earthquakes, one after the other, and the fact that people are scared to go back to their homes, they're camping out in the street, in the last couple of days, we've also been seeing new videos of bumblebees. Well, not just bumblebees, but bees of all variety, laying down flat on the concrete, almost convulsing, as if these earthquakes have had some sort of an effect on the local bee life that has caused them to drop dead, sadly, following these earthquakes. And there are a number of news stories about this, trying to figure out what exactly is happening here. Now, you could say that, well, let's say some of these beehives were underground or under the concrete, and when the earthquakes happened and potentially the queen bee got hurt or something of that nature, it then sent all of the drone bees up out onto the street in a defensive mechanism in which they then periled at their own volition. But on the other hand, most experts will tell you that bees don't really live underground. They look for more high up areas up in the trees where they can put their nests. And according to one professor of science at a local college who deals with all things having to do with wildlife and bees and how they work, has said that basically this is very strange. A simple earthquake should not be causing thousands or millions of bees to suddenly drop out of the sky down onto the ground and perish from the planet. So something very unusual is here. And, I think it's always been said that bees, or a large number of them, depend on the Earth's gravity and its magnetic pull, which allows these bees to sink into where they're going, what they're doing, what they need to get done. And when that magnetic interference begins to cause trouble with that, well, it by all accounts renders these bees totally incapacitated. And so that very well may be what's occurred in some of these cases, but a lot of scientists don't fully understand what has happened. What was it that a simple earthquake caused thousands of bees to, for lack of a better term, lose their minds? And you can see a number of these videos posted to social media showing hundreds, thousands, millions of bees on the ground, shaking, acting like they are just totally out of their heads following these earthquakes. And so these unusual events with these bees began after the 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck Southern California, the worst that the state has experienced in 2 decades. Followed beforehand, the day before, the 6.4 earthquake that had hit that morning, with around 250 smaller magnitude aftershocks also hitting and being felt for 36 hours in between earthquakes. And definitely something happening under California. And right as I was researching this, and these earthquakes that seemed to be happening one after the other out of nowhere, we caught wind that an astronomer who was doing some photography up at the sky, some space photography, suddenly captured and started snapping pictures of an elusive man-made structure that I'd actually done a couple of videos on in the past, and that we still don't know much about today. But what they saw and what they snapped pictures of and what you're seeing here, right as these earthquakes were about to happen, were snapped pics of what's called the X-37B space plane, which, if you don't know, the X-37B looks like your typical space plane or mini shuttle. And according to NASA, it is fully autonomous, so there's no one in the plane. It's all steered and operated by robotics and artificial intelligence. And this highly classified space plane was originally built and under the control of NASA back in the early 2000s. But suddenly, this classified space plane was then transferred over to the Department of National Security, which raised even more eyebrows because it was originally said that, well, at least one thing we were told about this highly classified space plane was that it had some technology on it that they were going to be using to test some different propulsion methods. And I gotta say, after having spent 5 years up in space orbiting Earth, I highly doubt that it would have taken 5 years to test out some new kind of propulsion system. Alright, this space plane is doing something much more up there. You ask me, I believe it's doing reconnaissance, following other objects out there orbiting Earth, things that it doesn't understand, doing reconnaissance, and is for all intents and purposes a spy program in order for them to orbit the Earth. We never know where this craft is. Every now and then it pops up, and astronomers are lucky enough to capture photo or video of it, but we never know where it is, never know what it's doing. We do know also that it has a very secretive classified payload. But yeah, its mission, totally denied and classified. How long it's going to be up there, what it's going to be doing up there, totally classified. And the moment that these double earthquakes begin down in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas, we happen to see this highly classified reconnaissance space plane floating by in the general area of space. So theories are already abound that some sort of HARP weapon is being tested to create said earthquakes, or somehow manipulate the underground tectonics to manifest said earthquakes. Again, just a theory, but still. As I said before, I posted a full video about this specific plane and all of the strangeties surrounding it, all of the mysteries that just don't make sense. And if you want to see that video, I'll post a link down to it below. But could just be a coincidence that this highly classified plane was seen floating by as these double earthquakes occurred. We still have people not wanting to go back home, outside sleeping in tents, waiting for the next big one to come in. And before we go here, we will just lead out with some different images taken from around the earthquake site, showing massive tears in local farms, streets, buildings. And just to show how close up to the top surface. And here, before we go, you're seeing an animation showing this sudden earthquake outbreak in California that led up to the 6.4 and 7.1 magnitude earthquakes that rocked Southern California this past weekend. And so I hope all of you out there who live in these areas are safe. We have long known, and geologists will admit this, that a major earthquake along California's San Andreas Fault is likely overdue. And like I said earlier, if that goes well, California is going to be looking at a big change that may cause it to never look the same again. And hopefully that won't happen. But this is the news as it's coming in. What do you think about all of these bees being seen everywhere, where we have scientists offering contradictory and conflict as to what is affecting the bees? Some sort of magnetic disturbance, some sort of weapon being used from space to trigger these earthquakes, we don't know. The sighting of this classified mystery space plane that no one can seem to figure out what its purpose is. Stay right here with Secureteam for new breaking information. If I have any new stuff, you can bet I will post it here, so subscribe, share, stay tuned. You guys have a great day or night, and I'll see you all back here in just a bit.